We are going to be going over my 2025 spring forecast as I actually ended up getting done with this a little earlier than I thought. But we are going to be talking about how this could be another one of those very active springs just around the corner with not only severe weather, but the severe weather area will actually be in a little bit of a different spot than what we've been seeing it over the past couple of years. Plus, we will also be seeing the complete opposite compared to what we saw last year, where we're going to be starting out as a weak La Nina and then change over to a neutral phase, as last year we started out as a weak El Nino and then changed over to a neutral phase. So we're going to be seeing the complete opposite effects this spring, as we will likely be starting out the opposite compared to like what we saw last year, like I said. And we're also going to be talking about our temperatures, what we can expect this spring, our precipitation, what we can expect for severe weather, kind of like what I was showing you guys in my tornado season forecast, which you guys can also go ahead and watch that. And we're also going to be going over my overall spring forecast at the very end of it, so make sure to stay tuned so that way you guys know what to expect. First, starting off with the water temperatures in the eastern Pacific, we are still continuing as a La Nina, like I said, as we are indeed in a weak La Nina still. But as we get into the middle of spring, we will likely be changing over to a neutral phase, like I said, as those chances for a neutral phase will really start to increase, especially as we get into March, April, and May. So we will need to keep an eye on this very closely the next couple of months, as we will likely be starting out as a weak La Nina, like I said, and then eventually changing over to a neutral phase, which it looks like. I thought this was very interesting compared to what we saw during the past couple of years, because look at this. Instead of seeing an El Nino, we're actually going to potentially be seeing another La Nina again, because you guys can see how those blue colors are actually a little bit higher than those red colors. So it will be pretty interesting to see if we get a La Nina again. But as of right now, we're just going to be focusing on these areas as of right now, about seeing a weak La Nina to start and then changing over to a neutral phase, which we will need to keep an eye on very closely. Starting off with our temperatures, you guys can see that we are expecting below normal temperatures across the northern United States, but you might be asking why. Well, it turns out we still got a lot of lingering cold air across the northern United States, given the fact that we still have a lot of that lingering around after winter storms rolling on through. So definitely expect the northwest and as well as the higher elevations especially to be seeing those below normal temperatures as we get throughout March, and I think this might even continue into early April as well for those areas. Over here across the northern Great Lakes and as well as northern New England, I think you guys are going to at least be below average for March, but then you guys should really be starting to warm up as we get into the beginning of April. So this will be an area to still keep an eye on, as lingering snowfall is definitely looking likely. Perhaps a couple of big time snowstorms in March, given the fact that a lot of precipitation usually occurs in this area in March, but because we're going to have this cold air, it will likely be all snow. So we will watch the area in the northern United States very closely, at least to start spring. But like I said, we should then start warming up as we get into March and even the beginning of April, like I said. And then down here across the southern United States, a little bit of an interesting pattern, as I do think we're going to be seeing well above average temperatures across much of the southern United States, with the area most concerning over here across the southwest, where we will likely be seeing not only drier than normal conditions, but also those above normal temperatures. And I even think those could extend as far north as Ohio and Tennessee river valleys. But those areas in between, those areas that don't have any colors, such as these blues, those just mean you are expecting near normal temperatures for the spring, and as well as equal chances, perhaps, as you guys could be doing with both cold and above normal temperatures. So this will definitely be something to watch for, especially as we get into March, as we will be having that cold air. But then as we get into April, most of the United States should be near normal to slightly above average through April and as well as into May. And then for precipitation, we're expecting a pretty big time area of above normal precipitation, especially over here across the northwest. northwest, where we usually see most of those storm systems develop and then continue their way on down into the lower Ohio Valley and then right back up the east coast, kind of like what we usually see with the La Nina. So expect the pattern to be pretty similar like what we have been dealing with, as we're likely going to be seeing not only above normal precipitation across the northwest, but also we will likely be seeing some pretty well above normal precipitation over here across the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, Midwest, even down there and towards the deep south and southeast, and as well as those areas all along the Mississippi River. But if you go a little farther west over here in the Texas, I think you are going to start being a little drier this year. Instead of Texas getting a very active tornado season this year, I think we're going to actually be a little bit more quiet this year, given the fact that those storms are going to tend to occur a little farther east this year, given the fact that we're going to be in a weak La Nina this year, like I said. Because if you remember what happened last year, most of those tornadoes occurred right down there in Texas, given the fact that we were in a weak El Nino, and usually an El Nino tends to bring storms not only farther down to the south, but also farther to the west as well, which is why Texas ended up experiencing the most tornadoes last year. Now, that doesn't mean places like Iowa experienced tornadoes. It's just that Texas, experienced the most tornadoes overall, so that's why we are concerned about those storms potentially moving a little farther east this year, given the fact that we're going to be in a weak La Nina, which is the complete opposite compared to what we saw last year. Now, here's what we're expecting for severe weather now. You guys can see that on my tornado season forecast, we are expecting much of the United States to at least have a shot of seeing severe weather, especially if you live in this red color. If you live in this red color, you at least got a chance of experiencing severe storms this season. Not a high chance, but just a chance of seeing severe weather if you live right in this red color. But over here in the white color, this is where it starts to get a little more concerning, where I think severe storm chances are really going to be starting to ramp up this year, as areas like the upper Midwest, all the way down there into the Gulf Coast states, and as well as areas all the way up there into the Great Lakes region, will all likely see some pretty big storms this year. But I think the area that's going to likely be the bullseye for the most tornadoes this year will be areas like Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, even down there into, Arkansas, Oklahoma, a little bit there of Texas, but still a little farther east. Areas like Mississippi, Alabama will all likely experience tornadoes this year, guys. Plus, it could even be as far north as the Chicago region, perhaps putting more areas at risk for big time tornadoes this year. So make sure you are paying attention, as I do think the severe weather season is going to be a very active one. So make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you guys can be prepared for severe weather season, as we will probably go live several times this year, given the fact that this year tends to be a very active one. So we will watch it very closely as we get into the next couple of months. But here is my overall spring forecast for 2025, starting off with the Northwest. For the Northwest, we're likely going to be seeing some rainy conditions, kind of like what we've been doing with lately, as we're going to have some of those atmospheric river events rolling on through. So this will be an area to continue to watch for, as I am expecting those storm systems to continue to develop across the Northwest and then eventually roll on down to the areas that it has been rolling on down into. So make sure you are paying attention across the Northwest, as we might even be seeing some flooding issues over there. So now would be a good time to be paying attention. Areas a little farther to the east, like the higher elevations across the Rockies, this is going to be an area that's going to at least be interesting, as we'll be starting out with heavy snowfall, especially across the higher elevations, and then we're likely going to be drying out during the later part of spring, as we will likely be seeing temperatures really start to warm up. And like I said, because we're going to be in a La Nina this year, we're expecting those storms to be a little farther east, and that's why areas over there out west will likely be dry despite the Northwest. So we will need to watch a lot of this area very closely, including these areas across the Southern Plains all the way back over there into the desert southwest, where I'm expecting there to be below normal precipitation this year, but at the same time we will likely be seeing warmer than normal temperatures, putting these areas at an elevated fire risk throughout the spring. So make sure you guys down here in the southwest, and as well as areas over here into the Southern Plains, make sure you guys are paying attention this year, as this year will likely be a little bit of a different story, as Texas is usually the area that ends up seeing the most tornadoes, but because storms are going to be a little farther east, Texas will likely be on the drier side of things this year. And then the next area is going to be this area across the northern United States. Like we were talking about when we were looking at our temperatures, I think this area is going to be starting out pretty cold, at least throughout March and as well as into the beginning of April, before we really start to warm up across this area. So it will, like I said, it will likely start out cold and snowy, and then during the later part of spring, we'll likely be seeing rain and perhaps even some thunderstorms. So make sure to at least be paying attention in this area, as we are expecting both the beginning and as well as the later part of spring to be different. So that would definitely be something to keep an eye on there. The next area that I am most concerned about is this area right here, where we're expecting there to be some pretty big storms. You guys can see that much of this red color, especially those areas along the Mississippi River, will likely be experiencing severe storms this year, heading from Louisiana all the way up there into Illinois. So make sure you are paying attention this year, as once again the area of severe storms is likely going to be a little farther east than compared to what it will be this year, at least from what I know. So make sure to at least be paying attention if you live in this area, as I do think severe storms are going to really be a big problem in this area this year compared to where we have been seeing them. And then the last area is going to be this wild card area, especially those areas along the East Coast, heading from Florida all the way up there into southern New England, where I think this is going to be a wild card. This is mainly because this area still is remaining uncertain. I just think we're going to experience everything this year, from severe weather to possibly even some snowfall, especially areas north of the Mid-Atlantic, and as well as some, pretty big time storms as well. So it depends on what happens really, but from what I know so far, we're likely going to be experiencing almost everything in this wildcard area, from tornadoes to a lot of rain to flooding, just all that stuff. So make sure you are paying attention in this wildcard area, as I do think we're going to experience everything, including even some dry periods perhaps. So that just indicates that you must be prepared for everything this spring, so make sure you are paying attention if you do live in this wildcard area. But once again, the biggest concern this spring will more than likely be these areas shaded in this red color. But thank you all so much for watching my spring forecast. I really do appreciate your guys' support, which really did help me make this. So consider subscribing to the channel, especially as we will continue to keep you guys up to date with the latest on the spring forecast. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, so that way you can stay prepared for severe weather season, as we will continue to do daily updates on this channel. Make sure to also share this with any friends, family, or anyone who you know on social media, so that way we can help get the word out to everyone, and so that way everyone understands what spring could be like this year. And make sure to also leave this video a thumbs up if you haven't done that already. And once again, I really do appreciate the support from you all helping me make this, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend out there, and I hope you guys all have a great severe weather season, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you all so much for watching, and hope to see you guys again.